She blows past us all on TikTok.
Last question, which is, I feel like I'm always have hot takes with like, is this something kids should be watching? Should little girls play with this toy? Like, I'm always just in that area.
Right.
And then I'm sure people roll their eyes like, oh, Whitney, no one was traumatized by Wizard of Oz or whatever. Is there any toy that your daughter has gotten where you're like, don't love the message? Don't love it? I was lucky. I didn't get a lot of toys as a kid. I got My Little Ponies mostly. But
my daughter has like 20 of them.
Those are my shit.
Yeah.
I was a horse kind of girl.
Yeah.
Are there ever like movies or anything where you're like, ooh, that's a weird message for a 5-year-old?
Yeah, no.
A man will save you, White Knight, wait for the man. Like any of those where you're like, honey, that's not real.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, to be honest with you, I guess like being in comedy and trying to be like aware of like everything that's going on, because the thing is like, you know, being in entertainment, it's like all these issues, these hot button issues, like they're in our world, but like the average person like just doesn't care. They're like, oh, I got to figure out
calling your child average?
How to like make money. No, I'm calling my child's mother average. And yeah,
just a dart hits you.
Yeah, I'm kidding. You know, I know she heard that. No, but there's a lot of times where like I'll be like we were watching Pocahontas the other day, and I was like, I said to Jasmine, my girlfriend, I was like, isn't this
Jasmine?
Her name's Jasmine. My girlfriend's name's Jasmine.
Okay, and there's a Disney movie called Jasmine. Okay.
Yeah, Princess Jasmine. But Pocahontas, I was like, isn't it like we can't, like it's like kind of bad. Like they're saying like Native American people are savages and calling them savages, and like John Smith is like the white hero. I'm like, isn't that like no good for her to see? And Jasmine was like, no. She was like, my daughter. She was like, fuck this. You know, she was like, everybody wants to get all up in arms about everything.
And my daughter can tell the difference between fiction and right.
She said straight up to me, she was like, I'm gonna tell Delilah as she grows up. She's like, honey, when in doubt, get yourself a white man. She was like, look at me. She was like, I got saved by 2 white guys. And I'm like, wow. She said that to my face, and I was like, okay.
I have a feeling that Jasmine would have been just fine without both of you.
Both, I know.
I have a stinking suspicion.
You know what?
Is it sinking suspicion or stinking suspicion?
Sneaking.
Jasmine is the one. See, that's the thing. She's the one that told me. She was like, I was like, oh, like, look, we got a nice like multiracial baby now, half Puerto Rican, half white. She was like, absolutely. She was like, and I'm gonna tell her.
Going to college.
She said, she was like, I told her. She was like, listen, on college applications, we're gonna be Puerto Rican. On job interviews, we're gonna be white. She was like, that's exactly what she said. She was like, that's how we're gonna do this. I was like, yes.
So
yeah. So but my point is like a lot of this stuff, like I'll be the one who more will be like, hey, I think we should do this, and this, and Jasmine will be like, yo, stop being. She'll always call me. She's like, you're gonna need to stop being a bitch. She was like, my daughter will be fine. She's like, we'll be fine as women. And I'm like, okay, all right. I'm just trying to I don't know what to do. I'm trying to help, but a lot of times I just get told to shut up.
But I also think as comedians, we see everything, and
yes.
Everything we see as we're professional complainers, we're professional critics, you know, so it's like every movie you see, you're gonna be like, honey, don't look, you know.
Yeah, I'm always trying to like be like earmuffs or whatever, but you know, listen, my family is like very like kind of like old school too. Like I have a cousin who's a firefighter. Like she's like was the only one in her graduating FDNY class, and like she's like one of like the toughest people, man or women I know. Like I remember somebody tried to break into our house when we were 19, and she threw the burglar out the window. I'm like, so this girl, like, she just doesn't, like, sometimes the women in my family, I have to be like, hey,
wait, how old was this burglar? Like, what?
Dude, I'm coming back down.
Also, who says burglar?
I go old school. I want to go old school.
Who says the scalawag?
The scalawag.
This rapscallion came right up to the window.
Both our moms were at work. My cousin used to live, we all grew up in the same house. And my mom and her sister and her kid, that's my cousin. And I was coming home from like the store. Both our moms are at work. And I see the police and fire department on our block. And I'm like, oh my God, they're right outside my house. I thought something horrible happened. And then I see this guy in handcuffs. And he was like, my arms are broken. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? And I go in, and my cousin, she's like, yeah, somebody tried to break in. And I'm like, what did you do? She's like, I threw them out the window. I was like, oh, okay. Crazy.
Did you see that Sebastian Maniscalco, the intruder in Chicago?
No.
Okay, so...
Well, I know his bit when he said he would shoot his intruder with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a great bit.
No,
his cousin or something like that killed somebody?
No, so Sebastian Maniscalco's cousin is named Sebastian Maniscalco.
Yeah.
And he lives in Chicago, and I guess someone thought they were robbing or burgling Sebastian, and they fucked with the wrong Maniscalco.
Yeah.
Not that Sebastian couldn't have handled a burglar.
He could have, yeah.
I just feel like he'd be like, let me take off my bedazzled jacket first before we handle this.